The horizon should not be in the center of the frame. Don't crop people at the joints. Leave space in the direction the subject is looking. I'm sure you could continue this list without any trouble. We all know these basic rules, right? But that's not the goal of this video. My aim is different. I want to teach you what a photographer should actually think about when choosing the right frame. After watching this, you'll understand that the cropping and composition rules most photographers follow aren't really rules at all. This video will be valuable for beginners just starting their photography journey and for experienced photographers brave enough to step outside the familiar boundaries. And if you are drowning in a sea of simple, repetitive cropping tasks, I've got an AI solution for that too. There is a common belief that composition is simply a set of rules to blindly follow. It's like learning which button on your camera does what before you even start shooting. Some say it's the foundation, essential knowledge that as you grow as a photographer, you will eventually be able to move beyond. At the beginning, this approach kind of works, but if you ever try to outgrow your old jeans, you know it's not that simple. Even the Hulk never managed to break free from his shorts. Returning to photography, I believe you need to master the logic of building a frame from the very start rather than mindlessly follow instructions. There is a significant difference between rote memorization and conceptual understanding. The idea is simple. Deep comprehension of the subject's structure is far more productive in the long run than just memorizing facts. So before I move to real-world examples, let's take a closer look at the structure itself. Framing and cropping always serve to support the composition, and composition in turn serves the idea behind the image. It's the idea or the meaning of the image that dictates how you compose the frame and how you crop it. So it should look like this: idea, composition, framing and cropping. Composition exists to support the meaning, not the other way around. Never forget that. Let's start from the first rule: leave space in the direction of the gaze. From theory, we know that a person's gaze works as a pointer. It directs the viewer's attention. The viewer will usually study even briefly what the people in the frame are looking at. This is why it is used so often in advertising. Now let's think about what happens when the gaze hits the edge of the frame. Many photographers believe that good composition should guide the viewer's eye into the image, not toward the edge where there is nothing. Take this photograph by Joseph Koudelka, taken in 1964 in Prague. The woman's gaze is at the edge of the frame and she's turning away from the child, almost walking away from him. The people in the background are turned with their backs to the child as well. This all creates a feeling that adults simply have no time for children. You might think this woman ended up there by accident, possibly, but she's not there by accident in the frame. In this photo by the same photographer, you can't see what the subject is looking at. His gaze is directed toward the edge of the frame. At first glance, this seems to break our rule because we don't know where he's looking. But in this case, it's more important to know where he's not looking. The elderly man is not looking into the distance, into the part of the space associated with the future, with development, with continuation. And that is precisely the meaning of this photograph. Sometimes when a photographer wants the viewer to study the persons in the frame rather than they are looking at, they leave no space in the direction of the gaze. Photographer Dennis Scott doesn't care at all where the man is looking or how much space is left, because the goal of this image is to show the feathers and other details of the headdress. When I first saw the falling photograph by Bruce Gilden, I was absolutely stunned. I was like, what the hell is going on here? It's so unconventional. This is not what you expect to see when looking at a human portrait. You see a man looking into nowhere. I bet he was walking, but it feels like he is standing in the corner of a room with his head down. He is completely absorbed in his thoughts. The effect of his gaze hitting the edge of the frame only strengthens that impression. If you were used to always leave space in the direction of the gaze, you would never get a shot like this. So it makes sense to ask yourself these questions. Does the viewer feel discomfort when the gaze hits the edge of the frame? Is there a purpose in creating a discomfort? Does this unconventional cropping add any meaning to the image? The answers to these questions are far more important than simply checking the distance between the subject's eye and the edge of the frame. The second rule: don't crop body parts. On the internet and in photography books there are countless statements about how you should and should not cut off people in the frame, from cautious just in case for beginners to whoever does otherwise will burn in hell. Never crop so the body is cut off at the joints. Never crop so the body is cut off at the fingers. Never crop so the head is partially cut off or cut off entirely. In general, cropping the body is bad. Hands must be fully included if even part of them is visible. The same goes for feet. There are even special diagrams out there. Here is one of them. Red shows how not to crop, green shows what's considered acceptable. Where does all this come from? There are two reasons. The first reason is psychological. It's a powerful expectation we all have. The expectation of seeing people as whole, complete figures. This desire to see fully intact humans makes unexperienced viewers and photographers intolerant of cropping body parts at the frame edge. I used to be one of them long time ago. The second reason is the transfer of cropping rules from one genre of photography to all others. And this is where I want to pause and take a closer look. Let's consider three different genres. Model and commercial photography, where the image often has no other meaning than to showcase the model and the products they are promoting. In this case, cropping by the rules absolutely has its place. Reportage, documentary and street photography, where shooting conditions involve limitations of time and space and the photographer may not have the opportunity to frame a perfect shot. Art and conceptual photography, where the goal is to create a work of art using photographic methods. I'm an artist, this is how I see it. There is no point in nitpicking such work. Let's take a look at this photograph by Ricky Tan, which is clearly identifiable as a model image. The girl is holding her hand on her shoulder. It's obviously a posed commercial style shoot. The cropped fragment of the hand looks sloppy. The framing simply doesn't match the genre. On the other hand, here is the photograph by Ara Güle featuring Alfred Hitchcock. The fingers are also cropped out and there is no sense of carelessness. First of all, this isn't a model shoot, it's a character portrait. The hand extending beyond the frame creates the feeling that Hitchcock is reaching out of the image. It reads as a deliberate artistic choice, not as fault. When the body touches any other edge of the frame, it almost always looks messy and works against the image. That is, unless the pressure of the top edge feels intentional, like in this photograph by Martin Frank. Here it's clear this was the photographer's intention, that's why the image works perfectly. In Alexander Rodchenko's photograph from the series Rhythmic Gymnastics, the women in the foreground have their legs, arms and heads cropped, but this only enhances the rhythmic pattern created by figures in the background. In the next photograph, Pioneer Trumpeter, the boy's face is cropped by the chosen angle. We see nothing, just the boy, his trumpet and the banner behind it. There is no doubt this was done intentionally. On the next photograph, the cropped hands raise a lot of questions. The problem is that it's unclear what this guy is actually doing and we don't understand the action, we don't understand the purpose of the photograph itself. In this photograph by Liz Safati, it simply doesn't matter whether the hands are in the frame or not. It doesn't bother you at all. The next rule concerns the horizon line. The horizon should not be in the center. In landscape photography, this rule is followed, though not without exceptions. Take, for example, Hiroshi Sugimoto's series Seascapes. This is conceptual photography, where this rule is broken. However, even ordinary landscapes with a perfectly centered horizon do exist. You will often see them when the photographer wants to create a feeling of stability, calmness, or even boredom, like in this image by Henry Cartier-Bresson. And of course, I can't ignore Andreas Gursky's Rhine 2, sold for $4.3 million at auction, which is the third most expensive photograph ever sold by the date I created this video. I want to pause on this photograph for a moment because its price tag leaves many people baffled. Rhine 2 is a place that doesn't exist, not just on any map, but in reality as Gursky presents it. The location is a stretch of the river near Obi Castle with a small power station on the opposite bank. There are trees, lampposts, a warehouse, a perfectly ordinary European riverside scene. Gursky removed everything that could serve as a focal point, a center of interest, or anything for the eye to latch onto. This Rhine is not just without a man, it's without anything. The main point of Rhine 2 isn't that it's empty, it's that the emptiness is deliberately fabricated. What about the rule that you should never tilt the horizon? In Alexander Rodchenko's photograph Stairs, the camera is tilted so dramatically. Everything here serves the goal of conveying movement. The high shooting angle, the absence of the visible horizon, the diagonal alternation of the steps, and the sharp contrast between shadow and light. In his next photo, Rodchenko tilts the camera again, this time to mirror the tilt of the girl's head. It's as if you are seeing the scene through her eyes. Now look at this photograph. Not only the whites wash basin larger and placed separately, but photographer Elliot Erwitt also tilted the frame so the sign reading whites hangs higher. This only reinforces the inequality between white and black Americans. And let's finish with the portrait of Che Guevara. I'm sure you've seen this photograph by Alberto Coda before. Here is what the original frame looked like. On the original film strip you can see that the photographer took the first shot, then tilted the camera and focused on the main subject, but just as he pressed the shutter, someone appeared in the background. Coda had to use the first frame. But he didn't just crop the image, he also straightened the horizon. The original camera tilt doesn't strengthen the character, so in the final version the horizon was corrected. This is exactly the angle of the camera in the second frame of the film strip. The photographer definitely knew what he was doing. Alright, after all these creative examples, let's talk about the flip side, when you need speed and consistency over artistic freedom. What if your cropping tasks aren't about making a statement, but about getting the job done? For example, passports, ID photos, e-commerce products. You don't need a creative vision here, you need consistency, accuracy, and speed. And if you have hundreds or thousands of images, doing it manually is a nightmare. That's exactly why we created the Retouch4me Crop plugin. It's an AI-powered tool that automatically analyzes each image and crops it intelligently, based on the content, not just a fixed preset. Let me show you how it works. After installing the plugin, it's available in the filter menu in Photoshop. You can also use it as a standalone app, which is the easiest way to use batch processing, especially if you don't have Photoshop. First, you need to set the aspect ratio. If you don't find the one you need, you can use a custom setting. There are 5 cropping modes. The manual mode allows you to freely move the crop frame around the image regardless of its content. You can also set the aspect ratio manually right on the image using the free mode here. Free mode works only in this mode because manual mode is automatically activated in other modes when you start dragging the crop area. You can also adjust the tilt here. The maximum mode allows you to crop the maximum image area at a given aspect ratio. You can apply auto rotation based on person or AI choice. Custom margins also come into play. For example, I have a vertical image orientation, but I chose the horizontal ratio. In maximum mode, I choose which area of the image will be cropped. Let me show you a real example. I have a panoramic image, but I only need to crop the left part of it. I will set the aspect ratio and set an anchor point for aligning the crop area based on the selected ratio. I click apply and get this. Let's try it on the next image. I will run the plugin from the recent plugins list, so it will use its last settings. Done. Works flawlessly. The fixed mode lets you apply single crop type to an entire set of photos. I will show you how it works in the standalone plugin. For example, you have photos of people shot at a full height. These images have different resolution, orientation and even posing, and you need to turn them into ID photos. Let's upload them to the plugin. After uploading, you can choose any image and set crop settings for the whole batch. I will select this image, choose fixed mode and select the passport framing. I will set 3:4 aspect ratio. If you need to extend the crop area, use the extend option. I will also apply auto rotation. You can also use the custom margins panel for more flexible crop area adjustments. I want to reduce the space above the head. A great feature of the crop plugin is that you can set a fixed pixel size for the exported images. No matter what resolution your originals have, you will get consistent results. Sometimes there isn't enough space in the image for the desired crop ratio. For example, this man is cropped too close to the head. In such cases, you can allow cropping outside the image. The areas outside will be filled with white. In Photoshop, those areas will be filled with transparency if the layer you're working on isn't locked. Now let's create a new folder for resulting images and wait. The algorithm will apply this crop type to all photos in the set and export them. Let's check the results. Looks really awesome. Imagine doing this on 100 photos. The auto mode allows you to select multiple crop types and the algorithm will determine the best one for each photo. It analyzes every image and applies the most suitable crop from your selected options. For example, if I select face and shoulders, 3/4 and full body, the plugin will choose the best one for each image in the series. Colored indicators next to the crop types show which format the algorithm considers the best fit for the current photo. Gray indicator, the frame doesn't fit within the image, cropping is not possible. Blue indicator, the frame fits within the image, cropping is possible but it's not the best option. Green indicator, the frame fits perfectly within the image, this is the most optimal crop. The subject mode automatically finds the main subject in the frame and crops around it. It's incredibly useful for product photography. Let me show it on this series of images shot for an online store gallery. I will choose subject mode. I don't need rotation here, I will set a square ratio and extend the frame slightly. When I move the anchor point up and down, the frame turns red. This means it will go outside the image area, so I will allow cropping outside the image. I can also set the resolution I need here. I will create a new folder and wait. Let's check the results. Here are my images, perfectly fitted to the square. Finally, I want to crop that iconic image I mentioned earlier. I will use fixed mode for this one. The original aspect ratio is 1:1.16. Since I can't use fractional numbers here, I will type 100:116. The framing is set to passport. I will extend the frame and apply auto rotation. See how it works, before and after. I will also reduce the space above the head using the margins, then click Apply. The only thing left to do is convert this image to black and white and increase the contrast. Looks amazing, just like the real work of Alberto Coda. So let's wrap this up. The rules of cropping and framing aren't laws, they are tools, useful but only when they serve the idea behind your image. Crop because it makes the image stronger, tilt the horizon if it adds movement, cut off hand if it tells the story, leave the gaze hitting the edge if it creates discomfort, if that discomfort means something. And if you're working on a large volume of images where consistency is the goal, let the AI handle the repetition. Find the links below and try. Now go out there, frame with purpose, crop with confidence, and never let a rule limit your creativity. I believe in you.